Yeah, hello everyone. I'm Mahima, Head of Content at ThreadSol, and I welcome you all to a panel discussion webinar on the challenges of textile and apparel sourcing. This webinar has been brought to you by Mausmi Ambastha Stitch Diary, an educational blog for the apparel industry, and powered by ThreadSol, world's fastest growing technology company in the apparel industry. Today, we have three very powerful panelists from the global apparel industry who would be discussing on the topic. So I would like to welcome our first speaker, Ms. Yamini Chan. She's a senior consultant at ThreadSol. Yamini has been a part of this industry for the past 9 years with immense experience in apparel merchandising and business process consulting. She has done various projects for US and European retailers like Kohl's, H&M, Veromoda, etc., and has been a part of the product development and R&D teams of these companies. So welcome on board, Yamini.
Thank you, Mahima.
Okay, our second speaker is yet another powerful expert from this industry, Ms. Louise. She is the marketing head at FourSource, which is the leading B2B platform for apparel and textile sourcing. After working for the automotive industry, including brands like Lamborghini, she started working for X Technology, where she worked closely with the development team to find difficulties of global sourcing. Post that, she went on to join FourSource that dealt with global garment sourcing to match buyers and manufacturers. Welcome on board, Louise.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, everyone. Our third speaker is another industry expert, Mr. Ashok. He is the director at Krishna Lamicoats, which is India's foremost producer of specialty papers and films for the garment industry. He has worked with major garment suppliers across the globe who use papers for their CAD and CAM machines. Welcome on board, Ashok. Before starting this webinar, I would like to put forward the flow of discussion to all our attendees. Ms. Yamini, Ms. Louise, and Mr. Ashok will be discussing on the major challenges of textile and apparel sourcing. Also included in the discussion will be the key drivers of sourcing, major sourcing hubs, as well as the emerging ones, industry's progress in terms of digitization in sourcing, and the future of textile and apparel sourcing. I would also like to request all the attendees to keep their earphones handy for their convenience, and attendees are also requested to keep all their questions or statements for the Q&A round at the end of this discussion, wherein you can type your questions in the chat box on the right-hand side window, and the panelists will be very happy to answer them. This session is being recorded and will be sent to you for your own purposes or to share with others. All right, so without wasting any time, let's start with this webinar. And I would like to request Ms. Yamini to take over the moderation of the webinar from here.
Thank you, Mahima, for arranging this. So I'll start with a little bit of introduction to apparel and textile sourcing. I would want the audience to understand actually what does sourcing means. So in its crude form, we can call it as procurement. For a brand, it would be the right manufacturer who can deliver the product at the right price, quality, lead time, etc. And for a manufacturer, on the other hand, it would be the vendors from whom raw material or job work is being procured. We have amongst our panelists two important figures. One could actually give a lot of insight from the brand's angle, whereas Mr. Ashok can actually give a lot of insight from a manufacturing angle. So it could be worked out in a better manner if we have understanding from both the angles. So being a part of this trade, especially apparel merchandising, from the last 8-9 years, I have seen some major changes in the key players and the global sourcing patterns over the last few years. And due to the ever-growing evolution which this industry is undergoing, this pattern is going to change over a period of time. Both brands and manufacturers are facing serious challenges while sourcing these days due to the versatile and dynamic nature of the industry. Cost and speed are critically important, and at the same time, quality, compliance, and capacity cannot be compromised while sourcing. So the real challenge or trick lies in balancing all these factors at the same time. So in view of this, Luis, can you throw some light on the key drivers of apparel and textile sourcing?
Sure. Well, I think it really depends, as you said before, from what angle you're looking. So I think the key drivers for manufacturers and brands could be differently. I would probably go first for the brands, and then maybe someone other can take over for the manufacturers. Drivers are, well, we're talking about a market that is changing every day. So I think drivers are changing as well. What we face, just to name one, is to hit the prices, but also and having lower lead times. But what's really hitting the market at the moment is also to become more sustainable, to have more long-lasting relationships. So I would say drivers are to become more transparent, to become more sustainable. So we're all trying to change the industry at the moment. So that would be one of the key drivers for brands now to become much more innovative than they have been the last 100 years.
All right, thank you. Ashok, would you like to add some pointers to what Luis has already mentioned? Ashok, we can't hear you. Can you please turn on the microphone?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, it's good.
Yeah, I would like to add a few more points over here. I have been in the industry for the last 22 years now, and we have been having a global exposure as far as our supplies are concerned.
We've lost you. I can't hear you, Ashok. Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So in the last 5 years especially, when there has been a lot of changes, or I would say last decade in fact, when the quota went and a lot more became transparent, we had a far more important, contribution to be done by the manufacturers to the brands, because the industry is becoming very, very global now. It's not localized anymore at all. So today, if you're looking at the new markets opening up like Bangladesh, Vietnam, Cambodia, from a manufacturer point of view, there are certain costs which are common across the globe, and there are variable costs that are changing as per the dynamics and the location of the place. So as brands, they are very eager to reduce the price, but that is coming at a cost also. So adding to the point, that lead time, the right quality, right deliveries to happen to the brand which end up going to the customer, that has been the biggest challenge in the last 10 years. If I look at the industry back, people were more comfortable. They would work with few suppliers, and those suppliers were paid very well off, and they were very happy to work with them. But today, with this kind of competition coming up and the kind of challenge that are coming up, we have to be very, very actively involved in innovation. That is the only key I see right now. So it's just not from the manufacturer side, of course, even the retailer side, they need to create some new product to the market so that you have new buyers for them, or you have the same buyers buying a new product. Something like same like iPhone. You have iPhone 8, 5, 6, 7, and now X. So I think we need to upgrade ourselves in the retail sector as well. But yes, there is a lot of changes happening as far as the manufacturer is concerned. Their thoughts are changing. They are becoming more lean, more competitive, and more there are a lot of inputs happening from the industry right now.
Right said, Ashok. Since I'm just taking a point that like brands are looking for newer geographies. So I would like to ask, like we've been hearing a lot about what are the major sourcing hub for manufacturers as of now. So China and Vietnam are two major players which are actually leading that forefront. So I just want to understand why haven't other geographies been able to progress? Like there are fewer major sourcing hub for manufacturers. So Ashok, can you throw some light on this?
Yeah, I mean, see, today Bangladesh has definitely become a very, very important part. If I'm looking at numbers, they are number 2 in the world right now. Vietnam comes at 3. And then we have Cambodia and then so on. Unfortunately, India, in spite of being such a large country with such a large population, being second in the world after China, because of the policies that we have here, because of the what you call bureaucracy and the government support we do not have over here. In spite of having people who are qualified to make garments, in spite of having people available at a low cost, we could not really develop textile on the whole in our country, which should have been the way to do it, unfortunately. But if I were to compare even smaller countries like Bangladesh, a smaller country like even Sri Lanka, in spite of being small, they contribute quite a lot of good garments. So yes, the market from China has been moving out because the buyers especially do not want to put everything into one place because there was a risk running in that, because China of last 4-5 years becoming very expensive, and earlier they were different and now they're different. So the buyers definitely are looking at better places, and at the moment nobody is as developed in terms of size and scale as what China is. So, but things are changing now. If I look at Bangladesh alone for last 10 years, from where they were and where they are, there's a huge, what you call growth in their garmenting, and still they're growing. Right. But I definitely see that in the coming years, India will become a major player for the garments. The reason being the new government has come in, Modi's Sarkar, what do we call them? He has been looking at employing people, giving them job. So instead of giving them fish, give them fish, teach them fishing. So he's been doing that, and there's a lot of apparel parks coming up. I do not know if you're aware or not. Even Odisha has come with the apparel park. Jharkhand has come with the apparel park, and the government are definitely doing a lot more than what they were doing in the past to open up the garment industry. But yes, there is a serious need at looking at changing the labor laws, which is going to be a vital role for the garment industry. Just to give you a small comparison, if I go to Indonesia, if I go to Cambodia, you could find 10,000 workers working under one roof, which does not happen in India at all. The people are scared to have a factory with 10,000 people. They always come with factories, 1,000, 2,000 people in each unit at different locations, so that they are safeguarded if something goes wrong. So this fear has come out.
Right. Luis, do you have some important points to add on to the question that I have raised with respect to the European market? Since you are dealing with a lot of manufacturers over there through your platform?
I would say for European brands, when we're looking to international markets, also to European markets, sourcing is a mix of the various factors, and we just mentioned a few of them. So some brands particularly look for countries that are tax-wise very interesting, that are pricing, labor cost, quality, the logistics. So we're going from one sourcing country to the other, and then we're finding out that the logistics actually don't work with our lead time. We have that in Africa and Ethiopia, where we think of like very cheap labor costs, and then we find out that it's not working with our time schedule. Maybe the quality is not as we expected it. And then we have cultural issues. Working for a global company, sometimes the culture is just not the same. Being lived in Germany, or being German and lived in Switzerland for a long time, we have very high standards on how quickly you should answer when you get a response to certain things and certain quality certification levels and all that, audits that have to be done regularly. So sometimes those brands here find difficulties to understand the more loose system of controls and audits take place. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can now.
Yeah. Perfect. So I would just say that sometimes it's not so easy to say one country works for everyone. And this is why we also found our solution, because I think for every company, there are different factors. For some, tax reasons are more important than quality. To others, the logistics is super important. So this always varies. And this is, I think, why we have different areas where there are hubs that work for certain countries. Also minimum, maximum order quantities.
Okay. So for European market, you're saying that quality is one of the major impactors which you consider while sourcing?
Yeah, there has been a move out of China just because China got too expensive. So at the end, I think we came to a level where the quality level was very high, prices were low, and then prices got higher and higher. So now brands going out of China, going more into Bangladesh, Vietnam, but I think they're still facing issues here. So yeah, I would say price is
So is that the mix for large brands versus medium brands versus small brands, or is there any set pattern which you have noticed?
Well, yeah, I wouldn't really say it depends that much. Like the larger you are, the more able you're doing your own audits and controls. So sometimes even the larger brands, they just go to new sourcing countries because they have the means to take out their own audits, and then they just raise their own new manufacturers and they save on the labor cost. If I have a new brand or like a startup or something like that, I'm feeling very insecure and like doing that on my own. So I rather take the higher prices, but be assured that I have a good manufacturer and not standing there on delivery day and don't have any products to offer. So
I just wanted to know, so do you have some advice for our Asian manufacturer brothers, since a lot of audience who are part of this webinar are from Asia and they are majorly manufacturers. So a bit of advice which you can actually give from your experience?
I think timing was something I mentioned. So I think European brands don't have as many holidays or time off. So this is something I hear a lot of buyers. They're like, yeah, you know, they just had a bank holiday and they didn't come back to me and I didn't get my production and no emails were responded. So we are very email driven, and I think we have high quality standards. So we expect to have the qualities of the same level to all products. And then what I face now a lot with manufacturers, that we need very good pictures, transparency. We want to know who we're working with. We want to know the team. We want to see the factories, just to be more open and to build up a relationship between each other, so that trust and collaboration can really start from a good base.
Hello, Louis.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now I can. I lost you in between. Sorry.
Okay.
So
I said the last thing I said was for trust and collaboration, that you should start with being really open and good pictures that show your products. We face that a lot, that if you're trying to get new buyers, that you send images that don't really tell the whole story of your products. And I think that should be the first entry level, that you really show what you're doing and how great you're doing this.
I would like to add a point over here.
Yes, Ashok, please do.
I agree with Lois. Asians are bad in marketing. They're really marketing. Even if they have the power, even if they have the background, they do not know how to present. And that's our culture, unfortunately. We have always lived very moderately, and we have tried to look at cost cutting at every places. Unfortunately, which should not happen, at least when you're trying to market yourself. So I agree with her. There are two areas of concern that we have with the entire Asian countries, I would say. It would be Bangladesh, India, it would be Sri Lanka, Pakistan. In these countries, in the Asian countries, the response time is very, very poor. If you were to send a mail to China, you would probably get a reply, probably not more than 10 to 15 minutes at the most. But the same thing, if it is in India, you will have 100 reasons for them to mail you after maybe a day or two at times. Only a very, very few companies really understand that communication is the most important key. It could be anything. Even if they're asking for a sample, if they're asking for the presentation, you have to be responsive. And that focus is definitely missing in this Asian country on the whole. And that is because of the upcoming of ours and the culture what we come from. We have probably never been taught that it is very, very important to be on time. I'm just not talking of India as such and the whole Asian culture as such, by and large. Of course, the modern world is changing. There are entrepreneurs who are realizing this and they are changing the country at the moment, but it's at a very, very slow pace. So if you look at India, like at the moment, there are only a handful of good exporters. You could count maybe 35, 40, 50. And these are 50 companies who have been responsive, people who have understood, build relations with the buyers, and they have been able to go a stretch ahead themselves and make sure that they deliver what is asked for.
Right.
Another trend that's happening right now, if you look at these same buyers are expanding in few locations, in new locations of geography. For example, from Bangladesh or Sri Lanka, for example, you have Hyderabad Group. We can't hear you. Can you hear us?
I can hear you, Ashok.
Yeah. So now the trend is changing for especially the buyers. They would like to work with the same suppliers, but out of different geographies to take the advantage over there. So they are mixing their experience and they know that they're confident that these guys know what they need to be delivering. And then they're using the geographies in terms of cost effectiveness, like in Ethiopia, what you call Vietnam, in Bangladesh. These companies like say Hyderabad, they have gone and opened the factories in Bangladesh, Vietnam, and Ethiopia now. MAS has opened a factory in Jordan now. Like what Louis pointed out, the tax. Because if I were to import something from Jordan into US, a polyester-based fabric, I save 32% straight on my import tax over there. So at times, even this taxation also drives for you to what you call source your products out.
Thank you, Ashok, for the valuable input, and thank you, Luis. I would now like to go on to the next question, wherein I would want to understand from Luis's point of view, how far has actually the industry progressed in terms of digitization in sourcing? Because Luis, you are already handling a major problem related to sourcing, so that too through a digital platform. So I think that you can give us some insight on this area.
Yeah, how far have we progressed? I just I read something from the McKinsey study, the digitization of the sourcing industry or fashion industry in sourcing. And they said that they are chief productive officers, and out of 63 world leading apparel companies, they said that they see the level of having faced digitization as like either low or very low. And I think when you ask for the drive, the key drivers at the beginning, I think at least in Europe, we developed digitization towards the end consumer. So technology and all that has been used to the end consumer so that we now on Instagram see a product and very quickly we can respond to that, and to fashion shows that we say what is trend and what is not trend. But when we go lower down the supply chain, actually not that much has been done yet to have a communication from basically the end consumer to the brands, to the manufacturers, to all those suppliers, and then back to the brands, back to the end consumer. So the loop is really not working yet, and we don't have full technology from A to Z that everyone is speeding up on this cycle of fashion that is getting faster and faster. And we basically just change the speed on one side of the wheel, but not on the other side of the wheel. So this is why we started our company, because we think the brands and the manufacturers, they need much more digital solutions to work closer to with each other and to foster the collaboration and the trust and transparency. So I think there's lots that we can do there. What we face today, every day, is people working for brands, people working for manufacturers. They lived in those jobs without this technology for years. And it's hard for them now to understand that they have to change and they have to learn all these technologies. And so I can understand many times that there is, they're not too happy to change their whole life of working now after 30 years being in the business.
So I just wanted to understand how receptive are the brands as far as the digitization is concerned, because this industry is actually lagging behind other industries, I should say that. So what are the major challenges which you have faced till now from that angle while approaching from a tech front in front of a brand, and you are proposing a new solution which is purely digital? So what all roadblocks have you faced till now?
We're lacking a digital understanding. So what kind of browser I'm using, sometimes it starts with people are not like used to have a social profile, nevertheless like a company profile that's online. People are afraid of giving out information in the internet, even though this information is already there and you can find it, but putting it on a profile, you're a little bit afraid of giving a piece of your identity out there, and you're not sure if you're allowed to do that or not. So especially with brands, we have a lot of meetings where people have to get an agreement and a approval from their bosses that they're allowed to give this information, even though you would find it somewhere in the internet or they have it on their internet sites. But to have this on a social media platform that works specifically on the fashion industry, and no one can log in other than manufacturers and brands, but they still are afraid. So I think we face the lacking of understanding, the lacking of the daily business to work with a new tool. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Ah, perfect. And then yeah, I mean, we have all those cultural things that we will not, even though we go for technical solutions and we go more digital, we will not solve them. So you still need people that are willing to communicate. So if you work on a network platform, you still have to communicate in English. You still have to be out there. You have to post images. And this is something we faced earlier. If you don't write something on your blog, if you don't have your virtual showroom, if you don't show exactly what you're doing with detailed images, you're not visible. You have to be visible. You have to be out there. So this is a teaching on the manufacturer side that we're doing now. What are good manufacturer images? How do I message with European brands? How do I react quickly on demands from brands, and what are the information that I need? So yeah, it's coming back to this marketing point on the manufacturers to really be out there and not write to everyone. Brands don't like to get an overload of messages, but be very personalized and just on the certain topic that the brand is just looking for in that moment. Which is not an easy task.
Right. Ashok, can you actually tell from the manufacturer's angle now as to how far we have progressed in terms of digitization and what all challenges are there for a manufacturer?
This industry has evolved from tailoring to a complete, what you call, industry now. Unfortunately, majority of the people in the industry across the globe are the uneducated class which works. And you'll be surprised to know, in most of the companies I have been, these uneducated class of people who never even know what a computer is are the one who have got upgraded to the various levels of running the organization. They are shy in terms of using technology. They still firmly believe on their own intelligence and their own knowledge, what they have gained in the last 20 years, 40 years. They are not receptive to change. Like we had a Nokia and then we had a Android phone coming in, and these guys are scared to touch the Android phone thinking that we don't know how it's going to be working. So we are in transition period right now, especially when I'm looking at procurement in the garment industry. There are two kinds of procurement that happens by and large. One is the fabric procurement, which the bosses themselves are involved at every detail in discussion in that. And the second is the rest of the things. It could be accessories, it could be services, it could be logistics, it could be many things, which forms like around 25% of the total procurement what they do. So if you look at any major garment manufacturers, they are always focused on the 75 to 80% of fabric, but they leave this 25% unnoticed. And these are again ruled by those few of the goons who are handling this procurement over there. You have a lot of discrepancies over there. There is absolutely no platform for anyone to know that how the sourcing is done. And if you look at most of the garment industry, they are dependent on these few mediocre kind of people who have been doing the sourcing, because it's a very tedious job. Today, if I'm looking at some perspective of what Louis is doing right now for manufacturers, where the brands can actually go and see what manufacturers are making, unfortunately, there's no platform for the manufacturers where they could go and see that who are their suppliers, or where they can have a comparison, where they could look at, if I'm, for example, if I'm looking at sellotape, for example, I'm looking at a cellophane tape, a scotch tape, they do not even have a clue that there are 10 suppliers right next doors, because they have never used that platform. So this is what exactly we are looking at, where we could create a platform especially only for the garment industry. It could be buttons, it could be zips, it could be thread, it could be any kind of things that are required by the garment industry. I would rather put it this way: when I'm looking at manufacturer end, why not have a single digital platform where A to Z of what is needed for a manufacturer to produce a garment for the end user could be sourced from one. They could source it, or they could find a solution for what they're looking for. Now there is new trend that's opened up called, in India we are calling of something, there's a company called Ariba, which is giving you a bidding kind of platform. So why should only few big companies should have this access? Why not even the medium and small companies have a similar access to the products that they're procuring? There could be a transparency which is lacking right now. There is a lot of dependency on the internet people because of the digital platform not being so really used. So I feel yes, who lack a lot, and a lot of education required, because even today the garment industry in whole are dependent on people, the middle level of people who have been in the industry for a long time, and their personal connections and their personal what you call knowledge has been playing a vital factor. But this is also a hindrance for the growth of new products coming in, because they do not allow innovation to come so quickly.
Ashok, since you mentioned that there's lack of transparency, one particular aspect which I would like to add on over here is that there is a need of digital solutions which can actually ease both the brands and manufacturers in terms of maybe processes that are being carried out day to day and are taking a lot of time. I have been associated with apparel merchandising for a lot of time now, and one pain point which is there existing in the market is costing. So costing is actually one of the important parameter which you are considering while choosing your right vendor or manufacturer in terms of how would you source the best quality product at the right time and at the right price. So as of now, I have still date seen only Excels and emails as the only way a merchandiser is actually carrying out these tasks largely. And on top of that, there are conventional PLMs, which are basically acting as a data repository with very little intelligence, which can be offered by these systems. So we know that in the coming time, technologies like artificial intelligence and big data are going to play a major role in the industry. So as far as one of the pain points is concerned, I think costing is one of the most important factor which is considered. Louis, do you have something to add over that?
To which point specifically? You mentioned a few.
All right. So basically, I was wanting to know which parameter would you rate as the strongest in terms of sourcing? Since we think that being a part of this trade and the pain point which I have undergone, so I have like kind of highlighted that. So what do you think is actually more important in terms of sourcing the right product from a brand's angle?
I think then it comes back to the point that you had earlier when we go from high, middle, and low level brands, or like entry level brands. Most of them, I would agree with you, it's a matter of costs, but also becoming more and more brands that are more looking towards sustainability, having a close collaboration, something they can market then again to their end consumers. Because if you remember what we said at the beginning, the end consumer is becoming more and more important in all this process. So now the end consumer wants to wear something that's maybe not made, handmade somewhere of like a developing country, but they're looking in more like a story that someone made this and how the design process went, and that a lot of love went into this clothing. And of course, this is not done as cheap as like a standard product that's, I don't know, produced in Bangladesh. So I think it's not yet the market is as strong as it should be, but it becomes more and more important to have a sustainable process of the production and the whole material, all the yarns, or if we talk about merino wool, cotton, that it's more important here to brands that they have a very sustainable production. Probably it's still looking for the cost, but there are high brands that are really looking for the sustainable and the quality of their products as well.
All right, thank you. So
I would like to add, Yamini, I would like to add one more point over here. I believe if the brands were to really enforce certain ideas of theirs, like, you know, they already have nominations. When it comes to hangers, they have nomination. When it comes to the polyfilm, the packing metal, they have nomination. When it comes to logistics, they have nominations. That is, which is directly impacting on them, they have nominations. But the brands have not yet started thinking that there should be nomination at the micro level also, which is definitely going to create an impact on the product what they're talking about. Because end of the day, whatever services, whatever products is going in as a recipe, even if it is a catalyst, which is not coming to them, that plays a very, very vital role for the buyers at the end for the right product to come in. So I feel there has to be a little bit of what you call intelligence, a little bit of survey to be made, that wherein the brand should pitch in themselves in terms of nominating suppliers as well. Now, if you were to have this kind of nomination where you say that these are preferred suppliers for us because we know they follow ethically the business, they are not violating any human rights. Because in Bangladesh, if you're looking at Vietnam, if I'm going to the smaller suppliers who are supplying goods to the garment industry, there is a lot of these wrong things happening over there, which nobody can control it. So I feel that there should be a little social responsibility going down to every level where the brands are being, you know, sourcing the goods from.
Yeah, and not just yes, Louis, carry on.
So I just
there
feel that there's
just to that direction.
Yes, Ashok, we'll come back to you. Louis, can you please complete your sentence first?
So I just wanted to agree with him that there's a move in this direction, and more brands looking into having, like, supporting the manufacturers to go through a quality process and to look at all those angles of the manufacturing process where they can be more sustainable, to make sure that all the processes are in line, and also to support them on technical investment. Because another point, when we come back to the factors, of course it's price, but it's also shorter lead times and more flexibility. So that most of the time just goes with technology that makes it faster and to have better logistics. And if we're looking into this, most of the times when we look into Vietnam or Bangladesh or Cambodia, the manufacturers are not able to carry all those costs by themselves. But then on the other hand, if we don't have big companies, big brands, others won't be able to take those costs as well. So it's it's sometimes difficult to find the right partners then for each other.
So yes, it is basically lack of transparency across the entire value supply chain, wherein there is no facts basis which the cost negotiations are being done. A brand is actually talking to a manufacturer in terms of costing without knowing what a particular benchmark for fabric or maybe CM cost would be. So we've been working on a solution which can ease out this problem, and it is under making. So if the audience or if anybody is interested to know more about that, we can discuss that in the later part of this webinar, or maybe as a separate, we can take a separate session for that as well. All right, so moving on to the next question, Louis, since we have talked a lot about digitization, so do you think, of course, there are advantages of digitization, what disadvantages and advantages would you actually categorize the entire process in, which you think would be interesting to know from an audience point of view? Because we are talking about this digitization, but it comes with a lot of pros and cons attached to it.
So you only want me to focus on the disadvantages?
No, you can talk about both, but since we have talked a lot about advantages, so yes, a mix of both would be good.
So when I'm done, to keeping this answer short, just focus first on the disadvantages. I think like why we have moved to different developing countries, because the labor was cheap there. And that was also an opportunity for many countries, looking at Bangladesh now, for example, to build up an industry and to create a lot of jobs and market growth and industry growth. And of course, that was good for those countries as well. If we now come to robotic technology, maybe those jobs, those people will lose their jobs, and we don't have the strong industries anymore in the textile industry in the countries like Africa or Bangladesh where it was actually needed. I think there will always be like an automation production and a manual production, so those will go side by side. But I could see that a lot of people fear that they're losing their jobs the more digitization becomes normal to us and the more we solve with digitization. And that only like the big industries or the big countries will profit from it, and other countries will like not profit from it. Other disadvantages, give me a minute to think about it.
Okay.
And
that's all right. Ashok, can you give a perspective from the manufacturing angle?
The disadvantages, what I see right now, probably from digitization as such, I would say that only maybe you would lose the human touch what we have right now, because at this point of time, a lot of people are involved physically, you know, where your movements are there, people come and see you, they come and show you samples, and then they take, you know, there's a lot of interaction happening on personal level at the moment. So digitization definitely would take that away. So sometimes I wonder, as humans, do we really want only the job or just the money, or it just, you know, the solutions? At times we would want to have a socializing also, because this also becomes a parameter for socializing. So probably digitization already has taken away a lots of personal socializing away. I mean, the Facebook or what you see, the digitization, what's happened, it has taken people away from each other. So we are more in constant touch with the Facebook and WhatsApp than in reality. We don't meet at all. So obviously this is going to impact on your industry also. So there would be that would be one perspective, but then it's, you can't have everything. You just can't have everything. We are trying to increase our bottom lines. As I understand, in the entire process, whether it is the brand, whether it is the manufacturer, whether it is the end customer, everyone is looking at improving on their bottom lines, that how they make that extra saving, that they are more efficient, more effective, and we are able to use this digital platform to reduce our costs as well as our time, because it's, again, time is money. So the disadvantage, yes, as a human, we would be losing that charm of being interacting with people. Already we are on webinar right now. Is this not a part of digital? Otherwise, we would have had a conference, we would have met up in Thailand and have a discussion on face to face, which is lost now.
Yes, so the gains are much higher.
Sorry?
Maybe we wouldn't have even met without digitization. So
yeah, probably, yes. Probably wouldn't have met also. Yes, absolutely, I agree with you. The world has become small. I would put in one word, the world has become small. Now there's no distance between the worlds apart. By digitization, this digital world, we are able to connect, and we are able to know what exactly is happening in any part of the world. If it's a new development, if it's a new sample, earlier you would have to courier the sample. Today you can come on a webcam and show them the sample here. You have technology that can show you how the fit is going to be. So this is all part of digitization.
Right.
That's going to
So
make us more lazy for sure. That will be the only result we see. It's going to make us more lazy.
right. So the gains are much more compared to the losing out
Absolutely.
on sorts of factors like
This will be the
client-customer relationship. Yes. Right.
one who will going to take forward further.
Hello.
hello.
Yes, Ashok, I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now? Sorry.
Yes, yes, I can. Yes, please
I
complete.
said, see, today it's a change, it's a revolution of digitization revolution. So people who can you hear me?
Yes, I
Can you
can.
hear? Yeah.
Yes,
So
but the yes.
people who are going to adapt digitization are the one who are going to be going ahead in the race, and people who do not will be left behind for sure. Because the world is not
Right.
going to wait for.
Yes, sure. I think your voice is a little bit of, it's fading in between. Ashok, hello? Hello? Luis, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right, so my next question is based upon, we've been hearing about a lot of new concepts like proximity sourcing and reshoring from American and European markets. So Luis, since the majority of your handling is based out of these markets, can you throw some light on what is the scope for the industry from those markets in terms of sourcing?
What do you mean with scope? Like the scope of where this change will get us in the
Yes,
next.
or will it get stronger in the due course of time? Because now a lot of retailers and brands are getting manufacturing done out of the European and American markets. So how's the trend going to be like?
I don't think that already everyone did the change to get the sourcing out of European markets. So talking to European brands and American brands, there's still a lot of sourcing happening in the Asian markets. But yes, this is changing a little bit due to what we said earlier, a need of getting shorter lead times and more flexibility. So the new style is more to have products online, see if they're going well. And once they do, they need a reproduction much faster than they did earlier. And for that, of course, America and Europe is also looking for opportunities to produce in Europe because it's shorter. And the sustainability factor that I said earlier, it sounds better that something is produced and on the continent that you were living on and not somewhere else far away and you took all this logistic way. I don't think we're actually there yet, and it really depends also on the category, on what you're producing. I mean, it's different if you do a t-shirt or a cocktail dress, or if it's like a denim jeans. There are just different categories. So if we're talking about this topic, we have to look very closely into what also in the future robotics technology can do and what they cannot do, which will take a little bit longer, and where fabrics and yarns come into this. So I think generally we can say that sourcing will still develop, and I think we will have much more automation and much more processes that would be completely digitized. But I'm actually not fearing that we will lose the human touch and that we will lose the contact to the textile, because I think textile will always remain something that you have to touch, something that you have to feel. And I don't see that people in America or Europe will make a decision about a product they haven't had in their hands. So I think there will always be this connection with the textile products.
Okay, thank you, Luis. It was a really interesting discussion, Ashok and Luis. I'm sure the attendees have a lot of questions. So can we actually go on their questions to understand what all they have in front of us to be answered? So yes, I would request the attendees to actually put all their questions in the chat box and we'll be answering one by one. So we have a question from Stephen, who says people do all kind of communication with a whole range of options, and buyers make decisions on phone, in person, email, and so not all of these interactions are digitizable. So, Louis, would you like to answer that?
Yes, I think it goes to something we discussed before. For example, our solution just helps to make the selection of the manufacturer or the buyer easier. So I think we have a matching algorithm and we have standardized process, and with technology, you will be able to have a shortcut of your list and to know from facts who actually fits to you, but there will still be things that you cannot deal over technical devices. There will be still the human touch that you need to make your decision if this is the right manufacturer for you or not. And as I said earlier with the textile, I think you still have to see the textile and make your decision. So I totally agree with him that not everything will be digitized.
Right. Then we have a question from Divakar, who's asking that AI will not get involved in costing, but will help in data analysis. So I would like to actually add in over here saying that artificial intelligence is going to play a major role in a lot of different areas. One of them could be costings, wherein, of course, as of now, brands and manufacturers both struggle a lot in maintaining a database, in looking into past records, not providing the right benchmark values in order to get the right cost. So the whole process is a little non-transparent. So with a digitized system in place, of course, these problems will be mitigated to a lot of extent. And the tasks which are repeating and can be easily digitized can be done. So big data and AI is going to play a major role in that. Do you have anything to add over that, Ashok?
I would say that in the coming years, what Divakar said, that probably it cannot give you the costing, but then can give you a comparison. It can definitely help you compare of what happened in the past and what you're going to do now. It will help you to analyze better in terms of where you're heading to. So at the moment, there is no, without digitization, I do not see anybody really having a real-time comparison in terms of costing as well. If I'm trying to calculate my costing, there are 10 suppliers giving me 10 different lead times. There is no transparency for you to really figure out that what will really be effective. At times it has been found what looks cheap actually becomes more expensive because that does not turn up at the right time maybe. At times you get a product at a cheap price, but the product is not right, and you lose a lot of time, and you end up probably shipping the goods by air. So you, whatever saving you thought you made, end up making you spend more on the shipping. So this will definitely help in the future with the digitization, where you can know whether this what you're doing is going to be right or wrong.
Okay, thank you guys for joining us. I would now like to conclude this session. It was really nice to have you as panelists on the in discussing the challenges in apparel and textile sourcing. So I will just like to recap what we've discussed. We had undergone discussion about what are the major challenges which the brands and manufacturers are facing in terms of sourcing. What are the emerging geographies which are being looked at from a manufacturing angle, and why other geographies have not been able to catch up to that level? We also understood how European and American market is being considered for manufacturing as well from the point of view of reshoring and proximity sourcing, since lead time is very important. Costing is also a very important tool, which is a pain point for brands and manufacturers both, which can easily be digitized, and artificial intelligence, big data would be playing a lot of important role in the years coming to be. So there's a lot of scope as far as this industry is concerned, since we are actually lagging behind the other industries in terms of digitization. European market is majorly about quality and costing. Just a second, I've got a request from the moderator, which is Mahima. She'll be taking up something soon. So yes, I think
Yeah, the
Mahima
one
would want
waking
to
up.
take something. Yeah. Mahima, are you there? Yeah, she's now joined. So she'll be just adding some points over our.
Can you guys?
Hello.
All right. Thank you so much, Yamini. And a big thanks to our experts, Luis and Ashok, for giving out such good information to our audience. Much appreciated.
Yeah, so Mahima, we have a lot of questions which are pending to be answered. We can actually answer them through mail. So since we are running
yes,
short of
we'll
time,
definitely do that.
yes.
Sorry, audience, but it is time to close the discussion now. And if you missed any part of this webinar, a recording will be available on Stitch Diary's vlog channel as well as the Stitch Diary blog. And it would be really helpful to provide your feedback. And we will definitely answer all your questions which are sent to the email. All the panelists will love to answer those questions. But since we are running short of time, we have to close the discussion right now. So thank you so much for joining this webinar.
Thank you, Luis.
Thank you, Lois. Thank you, Yamini.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.